Okay, wait. Let me take care of the music. That's better. Throw the ambient a little bit. Hopefully that's not too bad. I'm going to pause the mic real quick. Okay. I had to make sure that the sound was coming through, but I don't know if you can hear the ambient music or not. But to each their own. We'll be in the alpha quadrant for a little bit today. And I'm just going to do a couple of patrols, I suppose. I don't have a lot of time. All right. So, there's a space battle in front of me. Let's go take care of it. Futila. Okay, I might to change the volume again. The overall output is pretty loud for me. Mainly because I got the headphones up. Yep. This is the worst time to adjust volume. It does sound pretty epic on these headphones. That one's gone. There we go. Oh. Okay. Need to hear myself think. So, because you know I like to talk during the streams and stuff. Anyways, so here we are in the Alpha Quadrant. Just that's what I'm looking for. Just hopping along for no good reason. Just to occupy the brain, I suppose. And I've been keeping up with the Discovery, the new iterations of the show, rather. I really don't have to boost anything on my shit. So here's the thing. I am going to change torpedo launchers. I don't care if I have to go down, but I'd rather have quadrant torpedoes at this point. Or some of those purple ones would be good. So we're about to turn the tide too. Now let me say this about this game too, while we're on the subject of how I feel about Star Trek and stuff. I like Star Trek. It's been my thing since my youth, and I'll put a pin there. I'll try to keep that in mind. The love for Star Trek and what have you. I didn't even see that coming. Oh well. But this is an example of what I think RPG online should be, MMORPG should be. And I'm not saying this because I'm a Star Trek fan, but I'm trying to give you a proof of concept. I don't know. I'm not even sure what it would take to make such a thing happen, because obviously it's a huge undertaking. But in the Star Trek world, you have sections of space called sectors, right? And they consist of certain regions of space, right? A couple hundred star systems, a couple star systems or something like that. And so you got these squares, if you will, like a chessboard. And inside that chessboard is, 10, 20 star systems or something. And one second, I gotta do this. Alright, I gotta make sure that the echo didn't go off randomly, as it sometimes might. Well, it could go off all at once, but I just won't hear it. So to me, it's the same as doing something about it, I guess. Let me recharge those shields. Anyway, so you got these sectors of space, these squares, if you will. So you got, if you take, let's say about, let's say you have 9 chess boards, right? Okay, we won. The part system. And so I'll show you the map again real quick because I think it's best if you see it as I play. If you already know, right? Um, each square is a sector. Now, what I would say about a game like this, and I don't mean just Star Trek, I just mean games in general that have um, races or allegiances or something of the case, where in the mythos of Star Trek, um, if you could see it as more or less as there's another space battle there. In the mythos of Star Trek, you could more or less see it as um, territories, right? I have this section of space that occupies so many squares on this on the board, if you will, and vice versa. And that being said, what a game like this needs is some sort of dynamics. I believe what you would do, what would happen is you would have to, first of all, you would have a hard time keeping people off of your game because, well, let me just stop this space travel real quick. All right, so you would have a hard time keeping people off of your game if we come back and realize that, okay, such and such race has really taken over the board, right? I've gone to work for 8 hours. I woke up, I slept for 6, worked for 8, come back home, and now my side of the board, if you will, is really diminished, right? And now I have played a game just like this, and what would happen is that, and you can really say, well, the powers that be has reset things back to normal space, as it were, so that um, you reset after somebody says, okay, here are the Klingons, if you will, and they occupied all the square spaces, right? That means the home space of the Romulans over here, the home space of the Federation over here, um, home space right here for Klingons, and in the other corner, Cardassians. But again, if you use this in other RPGs, really, and just tell us, you know what, look, our team has actually put some effort into conquering this territory, right? We got a star base there, we got a tower there. If if it was like a Elder Scroll type game or something like that, you install a tower that says it belongs to you because you managed to do that and stuff like that. Now this game, and I believe there are games, there are dynamics to the game you could really do that would make the game phenomenal, right? Um, and that's just me talking out loud, really. I think it would be cool just to say, you know what, I'm Klingon today. I'm gonna do all I can to make sure that the Klingon Empire occupies this entire map. And really, if you think about it, why else are you leveling up? All right, so if you utilize Red Dead Redemption 2 for an example, um, one of the things I like about that particular game is that the game isn't hinged on if you're level 20 or if you're on a level too, right? You got the ranking factors, but it has nothing to do with your skill and ability to do certain things. Now, I guess for this game, it's sort of the same thing, but obviously, well, I guess it's the same. Obviously, 10 small ships are always going to be not the same as one large ship, right? To an extent, that's true because then you're open to more things. You're open to more um, resources as a large ship, and you start off as a small ship. So I suppose you got that. Um, you got the strength of fate. Well, so okay, so this game may be able to say the same thing too, which is, uh, and really, not really though, because ranks on RDR2 just means you unlock certain guns, right? It's generally hard or more powerful rather, or more better, but at the same token, not um, it's not to the point where by the guy being ranked 90 with that one pistol, he could take over the board and stuff. I mean, he's susceptible to dying just as easily as you are. So, whereas this, not so much, because by the time you get a certain level, you get a better ship, you get better shielding, you get better weapons, et cetera, yada yada yada, which is to be expected. And at some point, it's going to be less about skill and about the load out of a ship, I guess. But again, that's to be expected. But I was just saying the dynamics would be very cool if I went to bed this evening and I woke up and the alert was Romulans has taken over 2/3 of the map. Then I'd be like, great, we got work to do, right? Um, Stuff like that, and I would think that would be pretty cool. And I don't mean just Star Trek, but I do mean all in all other RPGs too, where um, if you're playing you know, I don't know, I really don't know another game like this. Oh yeah, I did say Elder Scrolls. Oh the giants, the elves are taking over, or the orcs are taking over, or you're land grabbing, as it were, and stuff like that. So and I think that'd be pretty cool to have that type of gaming. Again, I'm saying it's not easy to do. I'm confident of that because I wouldn't know what it would take to do that, and but it would certainly keep you coming back because you're going to want to make sure that you don't lose. I say that about that too. You know, if you play DC Universe Online, a lot of people say it's going the way of the garbage. I haven't been there in a while because I believe them. It makes sense that um, the evil team versus the good team needs to be at war. That means they're trying to take over a city. They're trying to, you're trying to make it where if you were to use, certain cities that we've been using, like you've seen on CW or something like, you got, Central City, Gotham, what is that? Um, Investigate. Huh. All right. Anyways, there's another thing about this game I like is the fact that you get to explore. I mean, whatever. Things about RPG games I like, or open world games like this, is you get to play the game how you like, whatever you like doing. You know, my dad is a gamer, is not a gamer. um, he's more of a sports person. He plays sports sports games a lot, if anything. But again, it's because it's linear, and also you got football. Well, he mainly plays football games, and so you got a football game, and your job is to do one thing: what, make it to the Super Bowl. Rinse and repeat the process for the next however many years you feel like doing it, right? Um, uh, Boy, I didn't know I could go there. Okay, good. Oh, oh wait. Yeah, let's enter. Oh wait, what happened? Space Arena. Okay. Well, we'll see what that is if I get anything. Anyways, but yeah, you know, a lot of games I think would value from that kind of a gaming where your efforts literally change the course of stuff. But I was referring to my dad, where you know he plays football games, man, and whatever the year is, and football is the same story since there's been football. You take your team, maybe you trade players out, get players. You know, you try to get the best players and stuff like that. Other than that, you're stuck with the same story. You go to the Super Bowl, you don't. You know, so my dad has a hard time with games like this because the story is it's not about the story; it's about stories that's involved, right? This game and every other MMO game or RPG game is filled with stories and what we would like to call side missions. And really, you know, and so he'll finish a mission and he's like, "What do I do next?" I'm like, "Whatever you want to do." Right? He says, "Well, I need to know what to do next." I'm like, "You can do whatever you want to do. It's an open world. You have the choice, you know, to make the decision of what to do next." You know, it's one of those, and I can see this happening. I don't know if you recognize that there are story or interactive stories, um, comment, you know, being something interesting. And basically, it's if you go to the Xbox store, they got a game called Night Shift. This is an example of what I'm saying. Um, they it's a movie slash game kind of, right. The movie unravels by the choices you make, right. And so for an example, do I be rude to the girl or do I be nice to her, or Do I believe? Do I get in the car or do I not get in the car? Kind of thing. And so you're making choices throughout the progression of the movie, and hopefully, obviously, you're experiencing the movie from the main character, but the main character is only going to go as far as you let him go. And the whole idea of the movie is to not be dead at the end. And I can see a lot of those productions coming into fruition, right? And then what's going to happen, let's say 10 years from now where that's more mainstream and traditional movies, where we sit in a movie and sit for 90 minutes watching the story unfold before our eyes, right? I can see the traditionalists saying, it's a stupid idea because I don't want to sit there and try to decide and think what I should do next. I want to just watch the next scene. And where the next generation is going to say, you know what? I want to say what the next scene is going to be, kind of, yeah. And so yeah, my dad is more of the kind where would I say Mario Brothers? I mean Mario Brothers 1, where your main mission is to go to the end of the level, right? Side scrollers. Whereas Mario 3, it's more of which one do I go to? The choice is too much, and it's not. It loses all appeal. Well, we're in today's games where I feel like doing whatever I feel like doing. Hold on, let's see what it says. Captain ship sensors are picking up debris at these coordinates. The metallic content on the wreckage is consistent with Class V or Class 5 commercial vessel. Okay, let's do it. So as I stated, Star Trek has, I don't know what's going on at this point, to be honest, okay, we're locating more wreckages just like that, I'm imagining. My characters are not souped out on this game. My translation matrix, if you will, seems to be malfunctioning because I'm not privy to the Star Trek version of RPGs. Okay, and what I mean by that is obviously shield is the same as a shield. A gun, phaser rifle might be the same as a sword, right? So you get that idea. Or a staff, if you will. And that's one thing I don't like about the tricorders. Tricorders are supposed to tell me some stuff, other than just point me in the direction of debris, or anomalies, rather. Okay, there goes one, I think. Yeah, so, I grew up, I'm gonna say this, somebody says I'm old, and I suppose I am, but I'm born or raised, or I'm of what, I live in the void of time, in a sense, because I'm part of, I'm in between Generation X and then the millennials, right? So I'm not exactly a millennial, and I'm barely a Gen Xer. Chronologically speaking, I'm a Gen Xer on the precipice of of we're Gen X. You know, I would say, when you draw two circles and you overlap, and you got that one circle, that center circle, that overlapped area. I'm of that part of the timeline, if you will. And so what I'm going to say is this. When I got into Star Trek, obviously the original series was obviously in reruns. They were, but for me, I'm like 6 at the time, when I'm starting to get into it for the first time. And, or 6 going on 7, whatever, around that time frame. I gotta do this circle all over again. And so when I'm watching it around 86 to 87, a lot of the episodes were still fresh to me, right? They're brand new. They're brand new. They're not well, I don't know what the word to look for. To me it's not old. I had no idea this, I am 20 years behind the first episode, if you will. So 20 years later, I'm watching a rerun from its, last airing or whatever. And so to me, when I'm watching the original series for the first time, as, in that respect, excuse me, and then all of a sudden, it seemed like out of nowhere comes the Next Generation. So in my brain, the Next Generation is where I'm growing up on, because now it's all brand new episodes. It took me a while to say, okay, just as soon as I got used to knowing who the characters were on the original series, Chekhov and Sulu and Kirk and Spock and Uhura and all those other characters, and you got to the point where, or I got to the point where now I'm using Legos to build my own Starship Enterprise and, playing along as I watch the show. And it seems like the next week comes this, and I'm just wandering around because I'm thinking of what I'm trying to tell you guys at the same time I'm looking. So the Next Generation shows up, and I'm like, that's not Kirk, that's not Spock or anything like that. But at the same time, I knew it was Star Trek. Now, I'm not the person that was saying, well, it's not Star Trek because there's no Spock or Kirk or anything like that. But I was able to pick up on the fact that this was an extension to the story, if you will. So, I don't remember. I do remember a couple of commercials that says, next week we're going to be watching, or next week, the promos has something to deal with saying, 80 years from now, the crew of the Enterprise takes on a new look, and or the Enterprise takes on a new look and a new crew, 80 years from now. And to me, in my brain, it's more of it's more of, sorry, I am looking for those things. I don't know how many I'm looking for. 4 of them, obviously. And And so, it's one of those things. You just think it's the continuation of the show. Um, and so I didn't think of it as the next generation. I didn't, or yeah, that's what they did say, that, the next Star Trek, the next generation. And I just saw it as a continuation of the story. No more than, I don't know. No, I guess you would say it's the letter B of an encyclopedia, as it were, right? Well, gravy, come on. How hard could it be to find ship fragments? So but honestly, when I say I grew up on Star Trek, I'm at the I'm sorry, at the era where the original series. I don't want to say it ran its course, but it's now handing off to the next participant. Okay, and so you got the baton. Now we do realize at the time, I didn't know it at the time, which was I didn't know that the animosity of the original crew was there. I didn't know that they said, you know what, this show is going to be a bust just like ours was. And lo and behold, and all 7 years later, it was became a fantastic show. Um, and so there, chances are it's going to be anywhere there's trees, because why not? Why not put them in places where it's not random? It's not random if you think it's just only in trees or the wooded plain areas. All right, so what? Okay, so yeah, I grew up on Star Trek: The Next Generation in the sense of that I was literally there for the big review. I'm not the only one, but at that age, at that time frame, at that moment, where um, and for us, Star Trek was a family show for us in reality. Because every time Star Trek came on, our family get gathered around the TV. It's one of those um, it's one of those shows or moments where when you have when you hear back in the 60s, 50s, 40s, whatever, and they talk about how they gathered around the radio for Superman or something, and stuff like that, or Buck Rogers or something, where they're listening to it over the radio. Well, Star Trek was that show for us. The Orion Syndicate. Notify Starfleet to send a salvage team. Okay. There we are. So yeah, I liked it, and I'll tell you what, what the next generation did for me was it gave me a love for technology. And So how far up should I go? Let's do another one. Well, let's go over here. And so that's where I. Oh goodness. So that's how I grew up, and the next generation really gave me a love for technology, and I became a tech enthusiast ever since. So I love computers. Uh, my business is I run a digital marketing agency, and I try to do things from the engineering perspective. So if you notice, my character is a captain, but he's also the engineering, right? Because I like what Scotty told the Forge. You want them to think of you as a miracle worker, right? That they may be the captain, but you know what they want and you know what they need, right? And it's up to you to make sure that ship brings them to where, you know, to make them happy, right? And to a degree that makes sense. You can captain all you want to, but if the ship is done falling apart, your orders are going nowhere. It's that engineer that's making sure that your orders that says go here and go there, that the ship is able to go here and go there. And have we made it? I would love to get into. Nope, that wasn't the one yet. Let's do the note. I really don't know. Let's enter. And so now, if you don't know this, Star Trek is the reason why our technology is booming the way it is, because it has not inspired just me, but a slew of developers and engineers pay homage to Star Trek in the worstest way of possible. I tell people, you know, and it's the people that don't like Star Trek, you know, I'm fine with you not liking it. Um, the existence of these particles was purely theoretical. We call them Crusher particles in honor of Wesley Crusher. We don't fully understand the function of Crusher particles, but our ongoing research efforts have resulted in a dense set of collection satellites that capture the and process them. Okay, it is governed by several parent satellites that regulate position and processing. Recently, the array has started to degrade in output and even position. A quick survey of the system revealed that Orion pirates have stolen the key components from the parent satellites. Oh my goodness, the Orions. Okay, so there they go. All right, so we'll fly downward. It's hold on a minute, you guys. I gotta um I had to take care of some stuff around the house. So Yeah, we could owe our homage, or we our a lot of developers and engineers and all that other stuff. The technology we have today comes from Star Trek inspiration. And when I'm telling people this, that don't like the show, that care less about the show, they're behooved by the fact that a lot of our stuff today is because people who do love the show has decided to replicate, no pun intended, the things that they saw on TV. My imagination um, made me create. Look at that first squadron up there. My imagination made me create Star Trek computers out of Legos. Whereas somebody says, you know what, I got the ability to make phones that don't have a cord, right? Or I could make an MP3 player or something like that. Whatever the case may be, they're like, I'm doing it because I like it on Star Trek, and I want it to actually be more than just imagination, but it actually provides some sort of real functionality. And I'll say this too. One of the things that I've learned was when they have these Comic Cons of where they go to Star Trek conventions and stuff, right? And around 2007, if you remember, the first iPad. Well, somebody on the team brought the first iPad to Kate Mulgrew, who was who played Captain Janeway on the Voyager. And she took the iPad and she was getting ready to sign it, thinking it's a prop that they were wanting her to sign. And I'm bringing this to your attention is because by default she said this is a prop because it looked. I mean, you gotta look at it. It looks a lot like a prop from the show, and so why wouldn't she think it, right? And so there's a lot that's going on today because of Star Trek. I just got done seeing a video of them of what's called. I just said the word replicator. I saw. I don't know. We're in a phase where 3D printing is going to be much more rapid, almost instant. Which is, I think, it's pretty cool. Let's release some of those mines. By the time I figure out where I'm at, I'm going to be dead. If I can figure out where the satellite is in the first place. Anyways, there it is. I think that's one. New respawn point. Oh, there's not one. Now I've been watching Star Trek Discovery, and I really like that show a lot. One of the things I like that they've done to help keep with it is they're using the same original Star Trek sound effects on these super high-tech computers. And to me, it's a great sound because it's kind of like, oh, okay. So I can't repair the satellite. They're firing at me. Where are you? I don't even know how I killed that guy, to be honest. Repairing 7 of 3 satellites. Yeah, and so now you got to keep in mind too. There are people that balk at the new Star Treks and say to them, and they'll say, "Well, it's too it's too high techy like, so for it to be like a Star Trek show. So it's too, the the effects, if you will, is too, pristine or something like that. And you know, I'm not trying to. I'm trying to think of how to say it. Like before, if you ever watch Star Trek, any of the series, you'll notice how it's nothing but still images, right, in the background. It's a planet and it's just a still image and stuff like that. Um, Whereas if they're around a planet now, they could do all sorts of stuff to make it look like it's, inhabited or whatever the case may be, giving you all the data you need, stuff like that. So you're not looking at a still image. You're looking at a real, you know, um, all these other extra graphics and stuff. And so a lot of people, for some strange reason, think that Gene Roddenberry didn't have that in mind when he created the original series, and clearly he did, because if you see the first movie, even the motion picture, even though it was a flop, I want us to think about it this way, um, about how much of a dynamics that movie has compared to the original series, right? What the motion picture gave us, and a lot of people don't like it. I'm okay with it, to be honest. Um, as soon as I can find those bad guys, I'll kill you. Now I gotta just try to find out where the satellite is, and that's all there is to it. And so what I say is, the motion picture is telling you that Gene Roddenberry only had $2,000 to work with, and you got to make the best of what you got. And TV shows, and I don't mean just Star Trek, I mean TV shows in general, are um, movie-like quality, right? Um, Both with sound and visuals and stuff like that. That's phenomenal what we're doing on just normal TV. It's almost, it's pretty cool that our TV shows are just as magnificent to watch, just as a movie, because it's just that much into production to make it look, trick your brain into saying, hey, I'll watch Green Arrow. You know what? I didn't know that. It wasn't until I saw a Comic Con where he demystified the fact that he's not shooting arrows at all. They're computer generated. And sometimes I could see it. I could see where it's generated, but then but more times than not, my brain is tricked. And and so, but the thing is, that's pretty good quality right there. I mean, um, generally speaking, you do a lot of that's strictography right there. That's what we call it. Now I'm trying to find the other satellites, people. Is that it? For, First of all, let's just go ahead and get this while I'm here. And boy, if I could just find those satellites that are ready to decay. Every time I go down like this, they don't want to show up as I need repairs kind of thing. But see, I'm afraid if I fight that guy, I don't think it's a guy, person rather. Um, yeah. So for one, I'm not the guy. I'm not one of those people that really fusses about certain things when it comes to Star Trek. I'll tell you what I do fuss about, and I come to find out that I'm not the only one that thinks this. I found a guy who's um, I found a guy on YouTube who was saying why Voyager was his least favorite show on Star Trek or of the series of everything because he want to make it. You know, it's not saying it's not his. He doesn't like Star Trek. He's just saying why Voyager is isn't his favorite. And I tell people Voyager's not my favorite either. And whenever I gave out my reasons, I'm listening to this guy speak, and I'm thinking to myself, I know I didn't talk to him because he's saying some extra stuff. Now he's saying extra stuff that I wouldn't normally say about. Like, yeah, how I see it too. Um, oh, come on, person, you're over here. Sorry, I'm trying to look for. It says there's a bad guy here, and I'm not seeing it. I might have a. Oh well. So let's just stick to the satellites then. All right. Anyways, I'll tell you why Voyager isn't my favorite either. But before I do, I'm gonna finish that conversation I just had about, Gene Roddenberry's idea of, obviously the show is visually horrid. But what kind of budget are you going to work with in the '60s, right? And what kind of look at the movies even. The movies are the same type of production, right? You know you get if you got I don't know how many if you got $2,000 for a show, I'm not even sure how much money he had to be honest. Um, well, I'm just using $2,000, and if the if you could do a movie at that time for $20,000, what do you get? Right? And generally speaking, it's still not visually all that. I mean, cowboy movies are. Look at the cowboy movies for an example. Um, you're you're hard pressed to find a cowboy movie in that era where they're showing blood and stuff. Found one. Oh, stop. Is that it? Is that the other one? Okay, I found one. Hopefully that's it. I'll come up with three more.
Warning. Ship is under
Oh,
attack.
there he is. He's about to die real fast. Okay, now that I know what it looks like, sort of. And now but anyways, I was saying, if you take a look, first of all, the graphics certainly improved in 20 years. Some of the motion picture was made and the budget was better. He gave us a better show because he can, right? And so when the people are saying, well, it was too, it was too fake, and they said this about the newest movies too, oh, it's not fake enough. That makes no sense. And so, like for instance, the people talk about how the Klingons on the original series don't have ridges, right? And eh, and then when you go from that point, and the ridges are there on every other Klingon, then hold on, oh no, almost didn't get it. I'm sidetracked there. Whoops. So here goes what's the word I'm looking for? So the motion picture is obviously more money, more production, more ability to do stuff. But the movie industry at that time just took off. Because you get Star Wars, you have Superman, where Superman is literally like he's flying, right? And you forget, the first superhero movie I ever saw was Superman. And Christopher Reeves and all that stuff, and I'm like, oh wow, a show where people could fly. um, and stuff like that. But what I'm getting at is, you take something as simple as that. You guys remember them Superman? Way back. You don't even have to remember. You just got to be aware of. They wouldn't even have Superman flying, right? George Reeves, he just jumped out the window, and he gave you the obviously same thing with Lois and Clark version, but you thought he was flying, the visual tricks and stuff. You were able to trick our minds to make us think that Dean Cain was actually flying. Okay, so my inventory is full. Um, but they got that that Superman show where um, when Superman flies, he turns into a cartoon. So obviously there's that disconnect. Um, Hopefully this is it. Man, how fast do I gotta fly or whatever? Nope, that's not a bad one. Nope. Alright, let's try over here. Convoluted these stories, or this mission. Trying to actually be quick with it. Also, hey, welcome to the stream. Oh. Did I just miss it? I can't believe it. So okay, so let's talk on Voyager. Why Voyager is my least favorite. Um, as you know, I'm introduced to Star Trek. I said this before. I'm introduced to Star Trek where I felt like, and I'm going to tell you this too. Enterprise is right up there too, for the same reason. Because when I started the journey of Star Trek, from the original series to the Next Generation to Deep Space Nine, what is the what is the commonality of these three? Well, it's a continuation of the story, right? The story continues to go forward.
Congratulations, Admiral.
55. All right, there we go. Yeah, so um, there we go. We got the patrol one. I think that's what I was trying to do is get one in the midst of a stream that if I pass up a system that needs patrolling, I'll do it. Anyways, so the connective tissue here is I am 7 years old, and the original series is still my jam. I'm still making Lego phaser pistols and stuff. And then the torch is passed on to the Next Generation, and then the Next Generation hands off to Deep Space Nine. And then they drop the ball with the Voyagers. Why? Okay, let's see what they got to say. All right. Okay, let's go for it. Let's go reclaim it. Oh, we kill these folks. I'm pretty sure we got some people to blow up. And Let me do this. Yeah, alright, so the connective tissue is the fact that and for the first, at the last 2 episodes or 2 seasons of Star Trek: The Next Generation, you were able to get a couple of crossovers in. Quark visiting the Enterprise. I'm sorry, Quark involved episodes, right? And when you seen the Duras sisters on Deep Space Nine, it was kind of like, and this is one of those things that lets you know that you got that you got the approval of us Trekkies, is because you're using the past to help promote the future or the current present state of mind. So we got the Duras sisters, for an example, as part of this here mythos, extending their reach for their value and benefit there. But you're there. You're like, I know who those girls are, those ladies are. And so you like that, right? And now I understood you couldn't do that with the original series. Now we did see that with the original series, where they did have quite a few of the original cast members scattered abroad, and we know that, for an example, when Leonard Nimoy showed up, the value of the Next Generation really bloomed, because that kind of lets you know that him and Kirk are the two that says, here we go. Right? You're now a Star Trek show with us two in it. I mean, we had a moment with James Doohan, the engineer, Scotty. But something about Spock being there, kind of like he is, he's what we liked about Star Trek, him and Kirk. And we're looking at this guy on your, on the new show saying, in a sense, giving his okay, giving his consent, if you will. It matters. And so now with Deep Space Nine and stuff like that, it made sense, right? Because you got Carl Mooney, who was on the Next Generation, who is now the chief, engineer, if you will, Deep Space Nine. That made sense. Eventually, I saw that coming. I just wasn't thinking fast enough. Oops. And so, by the 3rd season, 4th season, you get Worf brought in. But what I'm trying to get at is you're able to do that because the world of Star Trek at that time is more than just the extension of the same story. It's just on, you're on the same time, but here's what's going on in this part of the game. While the Enterprise is out exploring, Deep Space Nine is doing stuff, right, to maintain certain dominance, if you will. Where are you? Oh, you're not gonna kill me this time, but I'm ready for it. Okay, you might kill me. Okay, come on, computer. There we go. Oh, they are going to kill me again. But, so, and this is why I say Voyager dropped the ball. That story takes place, you know, a whole other part of the galaxy, right? You're far away from the Alpha Quadrant. You know, I'm gonna say it like this. Well, I can't say it like that, to be honest. Um, I really don't know how to explain it, except you're in a position where you can't, and they've done their best to try to, you know, involve the next generation stuff, you know, so they could appeal to people like me. But I didn't really have it because, I would have accepted it if their methodology of saying, you know what, they're not going to make it home until the beginning of the whole series, which is, oh no, it blew up the torpedo right in front of me. And so that's kind of like, it's kind of like, wow, I'm not invested in the show. If it's going to take 7 years for you to get home, I'm more invested in season 1 and season 7, right? Assuming you make it to season 7, and they did, because I know for a fact that the next episode means you're still in the Delta Quadrant, right? And why do I care about that? You know, why do I care about you being in the Delta Quadrant? Now, it would have been more different if, you know, like let's say season 2, they figure out a way to get home, and then they get to continue on the storyline while they're in the Alpha Quadrant. Then I would have been more attuned to liking the show, but they didn't do that. They just said 7 years later, they'll be at home. And so it's kind of like, you know, it's kind of like Gilligan's Island, except without the humor. I'm sure they do got funny points into it. There we go. Oh no. You're gonna die, shit. Good. See, it's like I knew you would. Man, I don't know why they're fighting me so well. I'm so distracted. Alright, we got this one. One more second. with the winter, or with the winter the way it was, I try to stay hydrated, so I make sure that my cups stay full. And it does wonders when you stay hydrated. Don, trust me. Um, I can tell you, so many of my family members are sick because they refuse to drink water. They don't realize how dehydrated they are, so they suffer it. Anyways, so Voyager is one of those shows that kind of left the beaten path, tried to carve their own niche into the universe, and then I didn't like it at all. I wanted the story to stay with the Alpha Quadrant, expand on that storyline, right? Think about it this way. Okay, if you know that, if you know J.J. Abrams' version of Star Trek, which is the Kelvin timeline, what it is, it's created because Spock goes back to another timeline, or goes back in time, and disrupts. It's essentially another timeline, really. Um, so the Star Trek that we knew, that we grew up with, isn't the same instances and so forth. Um, but that happened because Spock was trying to prevent a supernova, right? And and stuff like that. So there's, it's kind of like, well, if you knew that Krypton was going to blow up, why make a show called Krypton? It's like the movie Titanic. You know the ship is going to sink somewhere towards the middle, and it's one of those types of things. You just know the ending. One would say it's all about the journey. I don't deny that. I've been watching Star Trek Voyager lately just to try to enjoy the journey home. Did my best, doing my best rather. But it's still the same thing of uh I want I want oh no, I see now. Oh yeah. So they didn't really contribute to the story, is my thing. That's how I feel about it. Um, and it's not because it's not because I mean, I guess you could say they contributed to it because they visited the Delta Quadrant. Okay. So coming down here, you're doing certain other types of missions. I didn't realize that. So let me go way to the top corner and see what we could get. But yeah, so that's Voyager for you. I mean, they just went off the beaten path, and they didn't extend the story whatsoever. Because my question has been, what has taken place in the Alpha Quadrant for the last 7 years, right? They're in the Delta Quadrant. Um, Deep Space Nine has helped Summer, defeat the Dominion War. They're in the Alpha Quadrant. They don't realize that. Um, And also in the same instance, they get some sort of news of what's going on in the Alpha Quadrant because they get the updates and stuff like that because they get a network that they could piggy bank off of and send the transmission to home. And so not only do they learn the mini war is over, but since half the crew is Maquis, um, they they also the crew realizes that the Maquis has been disbanded as well. They've been killed off and stuff like that. And now, because of Deep Space Nine, we're able to see that take place. We're able to understand we can't fly through the sun. No kidding, right? Um, we can't. But outside of that point, what's going on in the Alpha Quadrant? What's going on with Jean-Luc's team? Well, we kind of know what's going on there. Well, then again, we don't. Well, we kind of do because we see that the Romulans and the Remians are having a little civil war, thanks to the movies of the Next Generation and stuff like that. And yeah, I mean, I just wanted to see the rest of the story. And so, Enterprise, the show that comes after Voyager, takes us 100 years before Kirk shows up. And I'm thinking to myself, oh no. Because what makes Star Trek fun for me is when you emerge characters from the past into the next show. Now, Voyager have been trying to do this, and they've been, they had to be creative with a lot of the Next Generation stuff. And I'll say this, the Borg makes sense, because we realize now that the Borg is in the Delta Quadrant. It kind of makes sense because we recognize that over in the Gamma Quadrant, most of that area is occupied by Dominion forces. In the Delta Quadrant, or the Alpha and Beta Quadrant, so you would just say that, the Delta Quadrant is occupied by Borg forces. So that makes sense. That's where that particular enemy lies. But everything else, I mean, they put the Forge in there, LeVar Burton's character in there, but that's part of a time travel situation and stuff like that. They put Reginald Barkley in there,